A little bit from our sponsors, Gail's new video.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of Retail Resilient. We teach car dealers all over the country how to sell more cars and make more money using social media platforms. Like I said, who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Check us out at retailresilient.com or send us a message in the chat bar on the Auto Hub Show.
This is Barry Jordan from WhiteGlovePerformanceGroup.com. I'd like to take a few moments of your time to share how we can make you more profitable. Dealerships all over North America are using our cloud-based power dialing platform, Touchpoint, to manage their outbound sales-generating phone calls. With Touchpoint, your agents can make up to 50 calls an hour. Leave a voicemail, send an email with a link to a video or to your website, all with a click of the mouse. We specialize in empowering your teams to make the calls that make the sales. How can Touchpoint help you increase profit? Check us out, WhiteGlovePerformanceGroup.com.
Hi everyone, I'm John Latka from Automotive Business Solutions, where we help dealerships build more productive and proactive by appointment sales cultures through our Performance Management Partnership Program. So, if you want to increase your sales volume by 2 to 3 sales per month per salesperson, call our toll-free number, 877-708-8484 for a free consultation.
Thanks very much. Oops, what am I doing there?
We saw Gail.
Yeah. What is it? Okay. So a couple of books. It was a little hard on the book front because all the books are really kind of dull on chips. So Chips and Change, the future is faster than you think, and the new technology elite. So it looks like there's a lot of books around how actually changes in the market actually change chips. So I think you'll see a difference in how chips are made after this, but more importantly, maybe the use of chips, as we heard on last week's show from ex-Tesla exec about chips and how reprogramming might help manufacturers with this. Go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our Auto Hub Show disclaimer. The views and opinion expressed on the Auto Hub Show are those of our guest speakers and our guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Auto Hub Show or Ian Nethercott or Jeff Polo at any other firm, associated agency, etc. And today, this disclaimer might very well come in handy.
Thanks very much, Jeff. So we thought we'd change it up a little bit this morning and talk a little bit about Jeff and myself, just for the people that maybe listen to the show don't know anything about us. My name is Ian Nethercott. I've been in the auto industry for over 20 years, I think 21-ish. Worked retail for 10 years, mostly for Honda. I have a family history in the business. My grandfather in Ontario owned a number of dealerships, and my cousin owns dealerships today. My dad worked in the business before he became a medical doctor, which arguably made him a better medical doctor, from my opinion. And I've also worked with car dealers now for about 10 years in multiple areas. Currently work for a company out of the United States, does business in Canada and the US, called NABDAT. Won a number of awards for our automotive web platform. Go ahead, Jeff.
My name, of course, is Jeff Polo. I have been in the car business. I'm only copping for 35 years because I only admit to being 40. But I'm a dealership guy. I've worked everything from salesperson right up to GM and in all brands, almost every brand, from imports to domestics to luxury. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm a used car guy. I've luckily won some manufacturers' used car awards, just because I listen, frankly. And currently I do a little bit of consulting with people, and I'm a partner in a lovely little used car lot out in the sticks, and having a good time, but love being on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the OEMs, just because we had an interesting lead up to the show this week. I've been in contact with 5 or 6 OEMs in preparation for the show. Hope that the OEMs would come on and comment and clear the air on chips. I've also had some conversations with different OEM reps that I know personally. What we found, though, is that they really didn't want to comment publicly, especially in the live show, on the OEM shortage, or the chip shortage. And there seems to be some disagreement as I talk to different reps from different OEMs about what the state of it is and what the future is going to be. So I just wanted to start the show with that. But go ahead, Jeff.
Well, it's very funny because as we watch this video and we're taking a look and we're seeing that they're saying, well, now it's the fourth wave of COVID is affecting all these manufacturing places. And we just seen this thing, and I don't know, the Americans that watch may not be aware of this executive of Huawei, whatever they're called, has been held in house arrest in Vancouver in her 20,000 square foot mansion under very, very tough conditions over the fact this is due at 5G, et cetera, et cetera. But when she got released and she flew back to China, she gets off her plane and literally is met with people in white hazmat suits. And other than the orchestrated group of people waving flags, they moved her into a bus and they went in and they decontaminated her. So the reason I'm mentioning this is the Asian countries, especially China, because nobody really wanted to mention China, but they are the elephant in the room on this stuff. And they're so careful with their companies, and people are so controlled. How is it that their chip companies cannot make enough chips because of COVID? And this is what I wonder. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, although I love to stir some crap up. But so, guys, what do you think of this? Paul, what's your opinion on this?
Well, to be honest with you, it was just a series of events that have brought us here. I know from the front line, seeing when this all started, showrooms being closed, how Omvic put really big restrictions on how are we going to be selling these cars, zero human interaction. So even the dealership I was at, they basically cut all orders they had that were going to be sitting on the lot in fear that this was going to go a lot longer. And it completely went the other way around. Sales continued to go through, new car sales. People had money that they weren't spending on other avenues. So I think that was the huge impact of where this all started. I seen that at the front line of it. And then as we've all heard, I'm no scientist behind any of this. I'm just following what I have seen. We have the series of events where we want these microchips back. Well, too bad. We basically have been putting them in electronics, like video games, computers, other things that people are wanting to buy at the time. Then Trump decided to put his hands into play with China, and China said, screw you, North America. We don't want to give you any of this. So next to that, we moved on. We went to Taiwan for their microchips, and they were running full capacity. Well, they're so heavily reliant on fresh water. They hit a natural drought, one of the biggest droughts that they've seen in 15 years. So that plant went to shit. And then we move forward to Japan. Place goes up on fire. The whole place burns down. So, there's a series of events. This isn't just, a lot of people want to blame this on COVID itself. It originated in the fear that we weren't going to be making sales. So a lot of our manufacturers decided, let's back off on building inventory. But it's a series of events that are uncontrolled. It's Mother Nature. It's not COVID.
Yeah.
That's very, very, that's deep, man. That's really deep. I'm quite impressed at that comment. Bill, and from a dealer standpoint, of course, because what we're seeing is you drive by these dealers with 12 acres of property and
Mm-hmm.
cars, total, one car per acre.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, what do you think of this whole thing?
Well, that's a really loaded question. I appreciate Paul's comments. Here's one of the dilemmas that and it's a lesson for us, and hopefully the OEMs are paying attention in all of this. And I was just at the dealer of the year meeting out in Hawaii, and this came up. Dealers are more profitable now than ever before. In many cases, most dealers have shattered all records in terms of net profitability, because not only are we looking at how to operate on a leaner basis, but our floor plan interest charges are minimal. Many are turning a profit on floor plan credits simply because the cars go in, the cars go out. So it's basically just a positive cash flow. And also because of the supply and demand issue, we're making, we're our asking price tends to be the price we sell the car at and then some. So, it's become, if you can find a car, buy it because it won't be there. The real estate market has been no different. I buy and sell houses. I can see it clearly. Going back to what Paul said, though, I subscribe to, control the things I can control. Don't seek to control the things I know I can't control. We can't control. I mean, the reasons, I think Paul said very accurately. There's a lot of reasons why. I mean, I think foresight and hindsight, in concert. Intel used to build 60% of all the semiconductor chips in the world, and then we outsourced it to China because it cost us less money to outsource to China and have them shipped back into the country. I think there's a lesson to be said there and a lesson to be learned there. Also, supply and demand. I mean, the OEMs, particularly some of the domestics, would have you take as many cars as they can build, whether you stay in business or go out of business. And that was always the way. Well, now they're looking at their dealer financial statements and they're saying to themselves, Jesus, Cadillac dealers, GMC dealers making millions that couldn't break even before. And, and I can tell you firsthand from hearing it right from the source's mouth that they're going to be a lot more circumspect in terms of their inventory flows, because what good is it when you're full bore and the chips are no issue, that you overbuild, the dealers take every car, they can't sell them, then they don't take cars, the dealer, and then they wait till they sell all of them, then they go and get too many cars again. You can't manage a business that way, because you're either making a little bit of money or you're losing lots because of your inventory and the charges attached to it. So I think everybody's learning a little bit about a much more consistent flow. I think Toyota and Honda do a very, very good job with it. I have a lot of experience with them and Lexus. But I think overall, at the end of the day, I think we're all learning a lot of valuable lessons. I mean, I think really, truthfully, and from my perspective, you're going to find out who your best operators are in the automotive industry as we go through the next 6 months, because the guys that have to let people go because they don't have any solutions or answers, or much like a lot of management meetings, right? If you have a managers meeting and you sit down and you say, okay, guys, what are we going to do? Here's the problem we have. And everybody around the room commiserates for an hour and a half and the meeting ends and you have no solutions. Don't even have the meeting. Well, I had this meeting with my folks this morning. I said, look, we're going to toss things out there. What I'm looking for is my brain trust to help me formulate the solutions and opportunities. We all know what the problems are. What's the purpose of wasting an hour and a half of our time talking about what they are? Let's talk about the solutions. There are solutions out there. There are definitely solutions out there. We can't fix the chip shortage. We can fix our business model between now and the end of the chip shortage, whenever that may be. And when we get there, we'll be a better machine at that time when we get there. So I'm not trying to play Pollyanna here. I would prefer to be in a different place, but someone's going to end up part of this. And I definitely want it to be me and my people. So I would suggest people look at it that way.
Well, perfect. Thanks, guys. Now, I should also have been remiss, and I'm going to introduce our guests now that they've given us their opinion. First of all, we have here Paul, the Dodge Father Long, who's a Dodge Jeep guy from Chatham Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. Man, that this morning it just ain't working. In Chatham, Kent, Ontario, Southern Ontario, I believe. Paul, can you introduce yourself and your alter ego, the Dodge Father?
Yeah, well, I've been in the industry just over 4 years. Always been a Mopar, no car kind of guy. So when I decided to get into sales, it was a no-brainer. Had zero Facebook, zero social media when I started, but well, it's obviously the wave of the future now with things. So I do a lot of branding. I started the name The Dodge Father. It was actually my PlayStation name back as a kid, and just kind of incorporated into sales. And from there, I've just been trying to build my brand up, well, brand within a brand, right?
Perfect. Thank you. We do appreciate you taking the time, and especially under the circumstances when those are fine, beloved OEMs. And then joining us next, actually probably closer to the Godfather, is William Camastro, is the dealer. And I have to tell you, a big shot in the caddy world, just won a big Dealer of the Year award in Hawaii. And I don't know which is better, winning the award or being in Hawaii. From Gold Coast Cadillac, Greater New York City. Bill, can you take a moment and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Bill Camastro. I'm I'm a 30 plus year, actually 37-year veteran of this business. And I started out when, basically there was no such thing as give you an idea, we could residualize pinstripes for $1,000 when I first started 37 years ago. So it tells you where the business has come to and from then. But I've worked. I did 20 years with 3 public companies: the Penske organization, Auto Nation, and Group One. Last franchises that I owned and then ultimately sold was Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. So I can feel Paul's pain or his pleasure, depending on how you look at it. And we're a big Cadillac dealer on the Gold Coast of New Jersey. Home of John Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen, both live close by, as does Joe Pesci and Jay Wow from the Jersey Shore. And we're in a pretty cool area. I mean,
Are they
Cadillacs
customers?
in our area? Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, they are customers, all of them. But love the business. It's too late to become a doctor or a lawyer, but thank God I do love what I'm doing, and I love participating in your guys' show.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for the intro. Obviously, we're talking about the chip shortage. What do you think is really going on? Do you think do you think there's more to it than we're really being told? Do you think the OEMs and everyone else is sort of holding out on us? What do you think? Whoever wants to start. William, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I'll give you what I do know. A small little tidbit. I think this will say, hopefully it'll say a lot. So the semiconductor chips, right, which come in they almost look like little wafers and it's basically, they're small, right? But they make them in kind of trays. But what a lot of people don't know is the semiconductors for automobiles, as an example. So if in Taiwan they're building the semiconductors aren't just unique to the industry. So in other words, there isn't one semiconductor that can be plugged into every car. In fact, semiconductors are unique to maybe 1 or 2 models in each model line by manufacturer. So that not only do they have to be wired and coded, but the sequence of coding that relates to the battery, the anti-lock brakes, the panoramic sunroof, the cruise control, the super cruise control, the running boards, they don't all have the same capacity, and they certainly don't have the same coding. So I want you to just think for a minute. One semiconductor chip is coded. When I say coded, I mean just like digital coding for the specific vehicle that chip goes in, or iPhone or whatever. Okay. So these are not interchangeable. So not only Intel is now diving back into the semiconductor business, okay, and they're working with the federal government to do so. They're going to ramp their business back up. They're only at 12%. They used to be at 60% of the world's semiconductor production. So now what they're going to do is they're going to ramp back up in the United States. In doing that, though, they've got to go through every chip for every piece of machinery that chip would ever go into. Not only build the hardware and the ability to produce the hardware, but they also have to code and record the sequencing of what that chip does for the specific piece of machinery it goes into. It's a mind-boggling task. That's prime. Listen, let's face it. Whether there's no water in Taiwan or there's no people to work because of COVID, in this country, if we wanted to build something and retool for it, we can do it pretty fast, right? So if we could have done this already, don't you think we would have done it? It's going to take a while just to get the chips, the coding, the sequencing, and the recording of all this information on a proprietary level just to even produce them. The chip's this big, it's tiny, okay? It's really the digital and the coding aspects of this that are really the difficulties. So just to give people a perspective, most of it's up here. That is the problem to getting this done. It's not because they're in Taiwan or because Indonesia or wherever, can't, or Thailand can't, they're not the problem. It's the how to get from point A to point B to producing that tiny little chip is the problem. Otherwise, it would have been done already. So just a little feedback.
And also, just so you know, and you can see that if you're curious, there's a quick video I put in the chat. Some cars have as many as 1,000 different chips in them. So there's a lot of chips too. It's not a small problem. But go ahead.
Right.
What do you think, Mr. Dodge Father?
Well, I mean, I'm no, as I said, no scientist. I don't like getting into that rabbit hole of conspiracies, hence why I stay off TikTok for more than 5 minutes. Um, but I mean, the main thing is like you're saying. Again, everything is circumstantial. You hear 14 to 1500 even on some of these new luxury vehicles, chips that are mandated for these. Now we're starting to cut as OEM certain options. I mean, you see GM cutting off their dual zone climate control. Us at Chrysler, we've cut off power sunroof. So the sad part is it's really changed the views of the buyers nowadays. The buyers are becoming a lot more adaptive to what's your top three colors, what's your top three options, rather than the idea of what's your perfect vehicle. It's definitely moved them ahead on that game. And in our sense on sales, I mean, we've blasted used car market 20-25% more value or more price hike than we were, say, a year ago. And those numbers are not changing. And as for us in sales wise, I don't know about how state size is, but we're still doing okay. As crazy as it is, people see these lots, they see them dry. We're still making it through this drought. The toughest part I'm having right now is these customers that have ordered 6-8 months ago, a year ago. I have never even been able to give them a VIN yet. Now all of a sudden they're being pushed to a 22 model. Where's the certainty to keep a customer into that? That's the idea. This customer put in a build knowing that they wanted the exact vehicle, and you're saying, I don't even know when the hell this thing's being, produced. So I find that's my biggest hurdle right now, is taking your existing customers you've done your builds with, you've walked the process, you've got their sympathy on the thought of how long this is going to take. And it's taken a long time, to the point where they're price protected, but they've waited a year and it's still nothing uncertain for that.
So interesting. Is somebody going to be upgraded that from a Grand Cherokee model to a 2022L or something then?
Yeah.
Price
Wouldn't that be
protected.
nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Yes.
Well, that leads right into my question. And how are they reacting to this fact? And they can't pick a car from stock, which I think they've probably gotten used to by now. But are you hearing also that some dealers are hiking prices to take advantage of anything that is in stock?
Well, we have OMVIC. So OMVIC in Ontario mandates a heck of a lot more than the stories I hear out west, out east, in the stateside. I did see a couple of these things. Just for instance, the TRX came out, launch edition. I seen everywhere in the States, they were hiking them up 30, 40, 50 grand over MSRP. What did we do in Ontario? We can't do that. So the only thing I've seen is dealers buying these, putting them as a demo, then hiking up the price. But one thing for the consumers in Ontario, they are protected. I will say more than I see in a lot of the other areas of North America, is OMVIC's regulated. We can't do this.
Well, I watch obviously the auctions a lot, Trade Rev and eBlock, etc. And I have to tell you something. These things are, the MSRP on those are what? Is it about 102 Canadian or something?
120, yeah, 120. We're seeing on a well-loaded one, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm seeing them selling for 145.
Yeah.
Like Canadian, Bill, which is 12,000 American.
Yeah, exactly.
But Bill, same thing to you. What's your reactions? I know on one of our previous shows and on your show, we've talked about the Escalades with $30,000 grosses, etc. But how are customers reacting to this? This again, they can't pick from stock, and again, as I said, they're used to it. But with prices going up like crazy, to take advantage of that. Not saying you're doing that because you are the caddy dealer of the year.
Well, I think, I wouldn't mislead you to think that we're not getting a premium for our cars, because we are. And in some cases, it depends. I mean, a platinum Black Onyx Edition Escalade, where you're going to get, 5 1/4. We're getting a significant premium on them, primarily because we have, we're in an unusual area. We're in a very high income area, and these customers are want buyers. They're not need buyers. They have 2, 3, 4 cars. A lot of them trade in Land Rovers. We're trying to make sure if it's a local customer We don't go overboard. And what we are doing is when we have a vehicle that we know is a premier vehicle, like a black Onyx Escalade, black on black with white piping on the seats and blah, 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 we go out of our way to sell the vehicle to the customer that has a retail trade, which is key for us.
Yeah.
We because we will on cars like that, we know we won't sell the car within 5 minutes. We'll let it sit on the showroom floor for 2 or 3 days. We'll let people call in, and we seek out the customers that have a 2-year-old Land Rover, or we took in a Bentley not too long ago. We're looking for that when we're selling the cars, because getting used cars is hard to get, and we can control the environment. So yeah, we do get a premium for them, but what we try to make sure too is the premium that we get is less than the premium from our competition. We have a lot of dealers in our local market selling platinum Escalades for 25, 30 grand over sticker. So it's a very unique environment. And candidly, I've started off the last 4 months in a row with 0 cars on the ground. The only cars we're selling are inbound vehicles. So we have a very active BDC with multiple people. And what we simply do is we look for pre-trades, we look for trades, we go back through through vAuto, and we look for customers from 2-3 months ago that we appraised the car and didn't sell, because inevitably their car is worth more money now as a trade than it was prior. So we can get the premium, we can give them a little bit more for their car, which keeps the table somewhat balanced. And now we're actually bringing in, our trade to sale ratio is probably 70.75 to 1 at this point. So, that's the way we're keeping afloat, and that's the way we keep our used car lot full. I have a bigger used car inventory now than I had 4 months ago, and it's really paying dividends. We're gonna have our best retail month for used cars in the store's history this month. So I'd love to say there's a perfect way to do this, but I'm learning as like my people are learning. We have Auto Alert, our data mining service, right? So we know in our area there's a lot of people that have multiple cars because they just want to have multiple cars. So what we've begun to do is now we go into Auto Alert, and we have our salespeople contact their customers who weren't looking to get rid of their cars but have multiple vehicles, and we offer to buy them out of their leases and buy their vehicles from them. And even if they're not in the market to do so, we plug it into their heads. It's the best retail time to ever sell your trade. Even if you're not going to buy a car for 6 months, get the maximum for your trade now, and then come back to us and lease your vehicle in the future. And they don't all say yes, but the 2s and 3s and 4s that you pick off is really helping us, move the needle.
Well, Bill, it's interesting you brought that up. That reminds me of, I hate to use the term, but back in the day when the PT Cruiser rush was on, I spent a lot of time with Chrysler and Jeep.
We still don't know why that rush ever started, but it was on.
Yeah, it was hotter than heck. And what we did was we called people 8 months, a year after buying them, when they started to build production, and we took their cars in on trade, got them a new one, got a little bit of difference, and then exported their trade to the States because it was still hotter than crazy down there. So that reminds me of that. That's a very interesting thing. So now you can go back to your people about an Escalade a year ago, give them what they paid, sell them a new one for big money, and then get the money back on theirs.
Yeah, I'll tell you one other little wrinkle on that. If you go back a year, when a lot of dealers had way too many, when the new model was being announced, and all of a sudden we had this huge glut of 2020s, 19s and 20s, and all the customers that were in a lease 2 and 3 years out, they all wanted the 21 and were willing to pay for it. So we really went after those people and bought a lot of those cars, and still do. And what's happening is a lot of those people, there were huge. At one point, you had a $9,500 incentive on 2020 Escalades. So now, if you go back to those people and you buy them out of those cars and even pay them a premium where you show them a little bit of equity, you are absolutely buying this car so right you can't imagine in today's market, because the market's adjusted so heavily that you're buying these cars. So we're at market price, at fair market price right now on MMR. You can make $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 on an Escalade, and you're charging fair market value, and the customers aren't upset, and they're certified.
Wow. So yeah, I know we've had this discussion before about sort of really thinking outside the box and actually trying to solve problems with solutions. I mean, I know I was on another used car show and we were talking about taking people out of a lease from another brand and saying, hey, like traditionally you couldn't get that person out of a lease, but because of values and because of shortages, there's definitely opportunities to say, hey, like, rethink how you look at the problem. And I think that you're 100% right there, Wayne. I mean, it's not your typical business right now, and you have to think about it in different ways. And this kind of leads into the next question. What do you think is going to happen? When the customers who say bought the car this year, and 2 years later, what do you think's gonna happen? Do you think the incentives are gonna get back to silly levels from the OEM? What do you think's how they're gonna react to that?
I haven't seen incentives dramatically change, to be honest with you. Chrysler's always been one with 20%, 10,000 off, 0% finance, whatever way they buy the rate down. They haven't really changed much incentive wise. So I don't think, for in all honesty, 2 years, I don't think it's enough time to sit there and think we're going to be back to the normal life. I think that this has forever changed our industry, and we are going to be feeling this for the better part of the next 5 years before we even come close to what we thought was the norm, which will now be the new norm. I don't think we're going to go back to this regular life that we used to have. Huge point in case is online presence. I think that being part of this online presence during all of this COVID section has really built growth on companies that have adapted to it, because these customers now are spending more time than ever online, and communicating with you more through the phones, through the texts, through online. So I don't think 2 years is enough to say that we're going to be seeing these people getting stuck out. My worry is when I hear manufacturers like GM cutting their fuel efficiency mods on it, cutting it down on that. So now we're going to have these generations where these mods have been temporary vehicles. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, where they were only doing one key. I think those vehicles are going to be the vehicles that are going to be harder for these people to get rid of down the road. They're not going to have as good of a residual per se as the vehicles pre microchip shortage. But as I sit here and say 2 years from now, are these people going to be in a rut? Are they going to be? I can't see this changing at all. As sad as it is, we've been seeing this used car market fluctuate up and down in the States. And we finally, started saying, okay, things are finally coming back to normal, and it shot right back up again. So I don't think there's any control to sit here and say within 2 years, these customers are going to have a hard time. My problem is these lease customers. We can pull them out. I had a friend, didn't even consider getting out of his vehicle. He made his payments for a year and a half out of a 3-year lease. Well, guess what? You're in $6,000 equity position right now. How do you say no to that? How do you say no to that? Like, isn't that not sound insane? So problem is, what am I going to put you in? That's the next problem. We had this huge lease thing where they were doing $80 a week for these bighorns coming in. 2-year lease, $80 a week. Everybody jumped on them. We could pull you out of it right now and sell it on the market for another $10,000 at fair market value. Like, the value's there behind you. It's what are we doing to put them into? And that's my big problem is these leases over the next couple of years. Where are we going to be putting these people that are waiting on vehicles, and the shortage in that sense?
Interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think, Bill? I mean, obviously you've had some discussions around the same sort of problems, but working on solutions. And I've heard a whole bunch of different solutions here. What are you finding with say those lease customers or the people that that you're dealing with on a daily basis?
Well, I think Paul makes a very good point. I think the biggest, look, there's a problem and there will be a solution. Not sure what they all are right at the moment. But again, to control what I can control, look, right now, with all the things that Paul just described, we're all making more money than we've ever made before. So I think we have that. Thank God for that. That being said, I do have a concern from a customer retention perspective, because the same people that walk back in here in a year and a half that are going to pay, $300 more a month than what they paid on their last vehicle are not going to want to understand that. Cadillac has pretty much gotten rid of all incentives altogether. So if you walk in now and you want to lease a vehicle, if it happens to show up, not only are you going to pay list plus in some cases, which you didn't pay before, you also have no incentives on top of that. So you your cost basis for a lease could be $8,000-$10,000 more than it was a year and a half ago. So you're going to be, I mean, you're looking at a payment of $300 or $400 a month more for the exact same vehicle in a current model year. I think the other thing that we have to be very mindful of and really kind of work at, because we can control this to an extent. And Paul, and no matter whether you're in Canada or no matter where you are, this is going to be a reality. Because no one's got cars, I shouldn't say no one's got cars. What I should say is we all have very few, right? We're getting 2 or 3 at a time. I looked at my analytics on Google this morning, which I do daily. We've done a very good job, keeping our traffic moving in an upward trend by doing a lot of social media and so on. Here's the problem. If you, like, for example, I took a picture of a car carrier I had come in last week, and underneath that I put in big bold letters, "We have cars." My phones blew up. My BDC was swamped with people, and we sold every one of them and made a fortune. It was great. So my traffic is going like this. So all you need to do is go on. We have cars. Do a commercial. We have cars. Everyone's coming in. You don't need to talk about price. The problem is this: customers that are shopping on the internet are not. You will notice that your new users versus your multiple time and return users. Return users are way down. If you don't have a new car, they're not gonna. There's no VDP to look at. So they're going to click, they're going to see you don't have the car, and they're going someplace else. Even your customers that are loyal to you, at some point, like we had the big floods in New York. You guys all heard about that. New York, New Jersey, 60 people died. We had so much water. Well, there's 100,000 cars in the New York area that were submerged in water. So these people are all out looking for cars now. Some of them are my customers. Well, if I don't have a car to sell you, at some point you have to say, look, I love you, but I'm going to look at a Volvo. At some point, you're going to have to say, I love you, but I'm going to look at a Land Cruiser, or I'm going to look at a Land Rover. So whoever happens to have the car is going to gain market share. This is from, if I'm an OEM right now, if there's any reason to try to get ahead, if there's a way to get ahead, forget everything else, is market share for the future. Our customers we're exposed to a loss of customer retention based on who has cars at that moment right now. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And a lot of OEMs aren't even looking at this, and they should be. We're going to lose there's going to be a big, there could be a big paradigm shift in customer retention right now. And for dealers like myself or Paul or whomever, that's a big deal. I mean, that's got to be our number one focus. If there's ever a time to work on customer treatment and first-class buying experience or service experience, this is the time, because you don't want to lose those people because you just don't have cars.
That's for darn sure. It's a very interesting thing. And I do have a suggestion, Bill. These people that call you up, you don't have cars, put them into a used Range Rover. And then when you get stuff in a few years, you can get them out of it.
Jeff, we actually, believe it or not, we actually are giving people short-term guaranteed buybacks. If there's no change on their Carfax, we condition the miles, and we give them a number that we will buy the car back if they'll buy a used vehicle from us, or a certified Cadillac, and wait for their new Cadillac to come in. Believe it or not.
That's I believe it strongly.
I mean, you're only going to do 3 or 4 or 5 of them a month, but it's another car deal. You make your money, and you know what? So if you make 3 mistakes 6 months from now, you'll sell the car. You'll sell the car. I'd rather keep the customer.
Yeah. And the fact is, of course, is that if this situation stays similar, well, when you get something for them, you got enough money in there to take care of the back end of the 100%. Trade. But if it starts getting better, well, you're now going to get back to where you're going to absorb some of your loss from the new car. So quick quiz time. Paul, used values in 1 year, crash or smash? Can't speak.
It's amazing to think that where the values are even as we sit. But I think they're still going to keep going. I think, like I said, I don't see a hefty outlook in the next year or two. As Bill's saying, as a manufacturer standpoint, Ford's always dominated the truck game. And I'm telling you right now, between Ford, GM, and our brand, Ram, whoever puts the trucks out first is going to dominate the market. There is no question about options, or, you know, Toyota's put out this badass Tundra. That's cool, but it doesn't matter, because nothing matters until whoever makes the first trucks land is going to be the one that dominates the market for the next year or two. And you will see that in the industry to come. It will be whoever made these things land are going to be the one that is the dominating of it. So as for used car market, I don't see it changing at all. We see fluctuations up and down, ride the wave, but nothing near. We're not going to go back to the norm. No.
Yeah, it's very interesting because my lot out here, we deal with lower end stuff, and I got $20,000 19 or 2006 F-150s, and we got people coming in on them.
Oh yeah, all day.
That's the scary part. Bill, used values 1 year?
I tend to lean in the same direction as Paul. I don't know what the exact timing is, but contractors have to build houses, right? Stonemasons need to carry shit around. Look, I want a new truck, but I have to work. So I'll buy something off of Jeff Polo's lot for too much money, but it's used. So even though I'm spending too much money on that vehicle by market standards, it's half the price of a new one. So I'll live with it until the new cars are a bit. That's what's going on right now. I'm seeing the same thing. I sell used pickup trucks here as the day is long. And like Paul was saying, I mean, contractors are everywhere. Painters are everywhere. People need to plow. Listen, from where I am to where you guys are, think about the guys that plow driveways, right? Your landscapers, your guys that plow driveway. I mean, who buys pickup trucks? People that need to, they serve a purpose. Okay.
No,
there are some people who buy,
I tend to disagree with you there. You know, the number one buyer of a pickup truck that goes in that box is a dog. Hey, well, I see a lot of guys in $150,000 Ram 3500s with an 8-inch lift and 42s on it and dualies and Alcoa wheels. And there's a St. Bernard in the back with his tongue cleaning his ears. They're driving down the road. So Bill, going back to you on a quick quiz question, then Ian can ask from there. So the big thing with Cadillac is this Lyric that's coming out.
Right.
And, you know, I just read today as an example, McLaren will be completely electric in 4 years. And how does this chip situation affect EVs? Because frankly, I think they got a few more chips.
To say the least. Well, the battery packs underneath, there are actually battery packs. It's not one big battery. There are a series of, you know, could be 70, 80, 100 batteries. They're like, you know, they're like the size of an iPad, and they're all lined up for different areas of the car. So there'll be more chips in that vehicle than there will be in a combustion engine vehicle. You know, interestingly enough, the one thing Cadillac is doing is Cadillac. First of all, Cadillac doesn't have a lot of like I was a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer, so I was in Paul's world. Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has so many different models of vehicles. It's insane. Okay. Toyota's got tons of models of vehicles. We have CT4, CT5. We have XT4, XT5, XT6, Escalade, Lyric, Stop. That's what we have. 7 or 8 models, period. Okay. So what Cadillac is doing is they're making sure whatever chip supply they get are going into the Escalade, the Blackwing, which is their flagship muscle car sedan. And when the Lyric comes out, that'll probably, in the short term, other than Escalade, take the precedence. It'll probably take precedence. So I don't think, with everything that's all the press revolving around this vehicle and their thrust, that they're going to they'd rather just produce a lesser amount in the beginning and make sure they all have chips than try to overproduce and talk about a shortage in cars and chips. So I think they're going to be okay there. It's the rest of the model line, the volume part of the model line, that we're getting hurt on. That's really it. So I think they're going to be okay there. Perfect.
Paul? Well, Chrysler has, Stellantis has no EVs, so you don't have.
We get 50 kilometers on a full charge on these half hybrids. I have nowhere near EV life, so I don't have to expect any issues changing on that. Hey, bigger engine gets you further. That's the way they are with them. That's.
But Is your store stocking Fiat 500Es is what I want to find out.
No, nobody's stocking Fiat, buddy.
Isn't there a Jeep? Isn't there a
Renegades can stay on the other side of the world, buddy.
Isn't there a Jeep hybrid or Jeep?
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen one.
Okay,
it's cool. They paint it blue. Like, brother, there's no Chrysler's not dominating EV whatsoever. We're the last
for a long time.
We're too focused on putting more horsepower. All right, that's all we do.
So when do you think the damn chip shortage is going to end? What do you think?
I don't think anytime soon, brother. I'm not one to foresee any of this, but when it first started, it was in my mind. I remember when this coronavirus started. I was working for Jag Land Rover. I was down in Palm Springs doing training on the Defender they brought out, and everybody was laughing about this disease from China called the corona. We all laughed about it. And then when we came back and the world legit shut down over this. Then we heard this microchip shortage. I'm like, yeah, microchip shortage. Then we started hearing rubber shortage, leather shortage. Like, the bullshit list goes on, guys.
You forgot toilet paper.
I don't have any thought of it. It's going to last a lot longer than we ever thought.
Yeah. What do you think, Bill? What do you think?
I'm with Paul on this. I think page all the way to the end. I think when it finally does end, it's changed the business permanent, so an indelible mark that's not going to go away, because aside from everything else, there's some positives that are coming out of it, like a balanced supply and demand, and you know, I think the other thing too is that the whole, you know, because you're shooting fish in a barrel doesn't make you a fisherman. Right now, everybody's making a fortune, including your salespeople. Right? We need to be ahead of that, because when there are cars, whatever that amount may be, it's not going to be like it is now. But as far as the chip shortage in general, I mean, if I put a number on it, 18 months, 2 years, I mean, the business will still be changed at that point. But I mean, I think it's going to be. Here's the other thing that we didn't mention during this was that, remember, I don't know if you guys did the same thing in Canada, but last year when COVID hit, and then all of a sudden there was the car, you know, they opened up all the showrooms and we were essential workers and blah, 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 right? We started selling cars like we were on fire. Volumes were up. It was insane. And then the UAW here in the States, at least, they had a worker shortage and cars weren't showing up. So then our lots went empty again. And then the chip shortage happened right behind it. So we've gone on this roller coaster ride of having cars, selling lots of volume, no cars making lots of gross, lots of cars and volume, no cars, lots of gross. There's something in the middle of that we got to pay attention to that makes it work for all of us. And but I think I don't know, man. I don't think that we're going to see business go back to where it was. And candidly, I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't, because I think what's going to happen is the dealers that don't pay attention, you know, you're gonna lose the weaker dealers, the dealers that are not process oriented, the dealers that don't pay attention or really look at their metrics. Those guys are going to die off, and it's going to create some PMA expansion for the good dealers.
And do you think that the way that we're ordering cars today, just because of a lack of supply, do you think that that's going to stick?
Well, I hope not. Going back to what Paul was saying, you know, we're in the same situation where, you know, we've gone months without being able to order Super Cruise and you know, retractable running boards, which is it was for some people, they just won't order a car. But I do like, you know, Ford's gone to the build by order premise, right? So they're building things to order. That doesn't give them any more chips. Can you imagine ordering a car, waiting 10 weeks and then being told, oh, we got no chips, it's going to be another 10 weeks? You're not going to be very happy. So I don't know. There's going to be a brick wall attached to that too. I think that more people are going to order cars down the road thinking they got a better shot at getting the car. But I think that's good. That's going to be cyclical as well. I don't think that that's going to stick.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
It's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. So we started this show with the joke about conspiracy theory. Who do you think really caused it? And I don't mean one person, we know this, but this could not be. And I know we're talking drought and we're talking COVID and we're talking this and that. In 2011, we all remember the tsunami that flooded half of Japan, and that there was a giant chip manufacturer there that, from what I remember, was doing 60 or 70% of the world's output of chips for vehicles. And by 2012, I was kind of trying to look up the exact date here. By 2012, nobody was talking chip shortage. So really, what is really going on here?
My question is this, guys. Now, being in the Chrysler brand, how the heck has Toyota managed to foresee? I have a brother that works at the Woodstock plant, and I know we have all of our brands. We have our Windsor plant, we have our Brampton plant. They've been maybe up, I want to say, the course of 8 weeks over the course of a year. My brother is still getting mandatory overtime as of today. So my conspiracy theory is not on who's doing it, is how the heck did Toyota get their hands into buying this after, I mean, the rumors are after the 2011 tsunami, they were banking on 6 months ahead. Well, they decided to say screw it and bought into this. Now, I'm not sure if this is true, but my conspiracy thought is Toyota's got the best handle on all of this. Why the hell did they get their hands into this?
I'm laughing because you brought up Toyota. And as I was looking here, there's an article in Fortune magazine from, I believe, August. And it said, Ford and GM cut their production by 50% through May. Globally, European manufacturers Gumbel, Volkswagen, Buckle, Volkswagen, Daimler, BMW, Renault slashed their manufacturing totals. They idled people and furloughed people. And then Toyota, through this year, has run at over 90% of production worldwide.
Conspiracy theory?
There's something. 90% of capacity, not production, capacity.
Yes.
And that is for the year through June. And in the second quarter.
Well, there's one very important reason. Toyota does not have the large OEMs like Ford, Chevrolet, and General Motors have union workers. Toyota does not. Toyota is a non-union company for the most part. Mm-hmm. So that it's a different environment altogether. If you guys get a chance, because it's going to be the same thing when this all comes to an end. Toyota, I was with Toyota for 15 years, Toyota and Lexus for 15 years. Not that I know everything, but I was there when they had the sludge engine problem. I was there when they had the random acceleration problem, and then I was there when they had the trucker strike. Okay, the UAW, because they did get their vehicles delivered by the UAW. They have a book that they published right after they had the random acceleration problem, and the book is all about, I forget the name of it, but it's all about how they overcame, how they retooled, how they settled their issues, and how they got past it, and even their PR. Their philosophy is over 50, 100, 150 years. Our philosophy is over 6 months and a year or 6 days. So we don't look far enough down the road to plan. Like when, for example, when they had the random acceleration issue, Toyota had $50 billion in reserves. Okay, $50 billion in reserves to settle their issues, retool, and move past it. Their fixes for the dealers, as an example, when they had the frame issue with the Tundra and the Tacoma, they were paying dealers 20 hours to replace the subframes on Tacomas and Tundras. It only took 5 or 6 hours to actually replace it. But they didn't want to leave. They wanted dealers to go after that business, get it done, get it fixed, and they used their reserves to do it. You do not see that in the General Motors, Ford, Chrysler world. They don't think like, they put the burden back on the dealer instead of getting in bed with the dealer and getting the problem solved. So listen, I can't, I mean, I'm a Cadillac dealer. There's some lessons to be learned from what Toyota does. They will have their employees, they will offer overtime to their employees. In the General Motors world with the unions, the union will tell them we'll only authorize a certain amount of overtime for employees. You can't make them work. You can't this, you can't that. So if it's building chips, building cars, mopping floors, they have a very different mentality with their employees, and that's why they overcome situations like this.
Well, you know, I was with Toyota at the time of that frame thing, and I remember a fella who picked up well, at that time it was only 13 years old, Tacoma way out east in the Rust Belt, and it had actually been condemned out there, and drove it out here and had the frame all rusty in the back, and Toyota approved a new frame for this guy's truck. Just because they said, let's just get her done. And it was a $13,000 warranty claim. It was wonderful. Gentlemen, we are getting a little bit late in the show. Ian, I'll turn it over to you. I thank you guys for all of your input. It was, wow, it was really deep. And I was hoping we could examine the conspiracy theory more jokingly. But thank you for your input. We much appreciate, and we really appreciate the short notice after we got abandoned. So one day we'll have an OEM show and call them all out on the carpet. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, I think it's called Kaizen, which is the
continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement. But I actually studied their manufacturing process as part of an operations class as part of my MBA, and they compared, ironically, General Motors to Toyota, and the differences are stark. I mean, they just are. You know, Toyota is constantly looking at improving, and they're planning long term. General Motors, not so much. So it's, and granted, this is old data, but I think, you know, they're really thinking, they're forward thinking, and it'll be interesting to see how that continues over the next couple of years. But
the ironic part, Ian, is that the Japanese, the guy who helped them with their Industrial Revolution was William F. Deming.
Yep.
And he's an American.
Yep.
What we need to read his book. Here in the States.
Well, there's a book called The Toyota Way, which talks about that. And yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, he was the one behind the whole philosophy. But the thing that was, I guess, really got me really interested as I looked at these two companies was the days of inventory of parts when you compare General Motors to Toyota and their ability to switch production. It was just so stark. Like, it was like, I think it was 3 weeks for General Motors, and Toyota was less than 7 days. So it was like a massive difference. So yeah, they were definitely more prepared. But in addition, they're constantly looking at improving all the time. So that's the philosophy of the company. So it's definitely, and people use it in different industries, but you know, it's definitely interesting. But
well, I gotta tell you this. I'll make one last comment about Toyota. You do not see Mary Barra fly to the other side of the world and get into a race car just for fun, and then fly back 3 hours later. That's what Toyota does.
Well, we're out of time, but thanks very much to everybody. Hopefully you got a lot of value, and have a great week.
All the best. Stay safe.